holidays are just around the corner. Thanksgiving is coming up in about a week now, and Christmas will be about a month after that. And I know a lot of new vegans and vegetarians find themselves asking around this time of year what a vegan Christmas or Thanksgiving meal looks like. After all, Thanksgiving is quite literally called Turkey Day by many people. So what does Turkey Day look like when you take out the turkey? Additionally, if you are hosting vegans or vegetarians this year, you might be a little bit unsure on what to feed them. Well, I'm here to help. Most Thanksgiving sides can be easily made vegan or vegetarian if they're not already. Just swap a vegan butter for your regular butter in mashed potatoes. You can make things like a mushroom gravy, and your cranberry sauce should already be vegan as is. The kicker comes when you start getting into the main meal, that centerpiece of the dish that traditionally is meat. What can you do for vegans and vegetarians in place of a whole roasted turkey? Now, one thing I like to do is to adopt a turkey or sponsor a turkey at an animal shelter. That makes me feel good about the season, but it does not help our bellies. So today we're going to be working on that. I've made several holiday mains over the years, including this one, which is essentially an eggplant contraption wrapped in pizza dough. It's delicious and very simple. We have this seitan roulade, which is a little bit trickier, but also, of course, delicious. A hot water crust mushroom pie, very festive, and even these wild rice stuffed squash, although my photography was not as good then, so don't look at it. I'm gonna bring you with me today as we go through 3 more options that I'm experimenting with this year. We're going to do a white bean recipe, a tofu recipe, and a lentil recipe. They'll all include festive holiday flavors, they'll all be delicious, and they should all look stunning in the center of your table. Best of all of these dishes will make the vegans and vegetarians around you feel loved, special, and cherished, as I know you all are. Let's get cooking. Let's start with our bean dish. We're going to use these large white beans. Now, this is a Corona bean, but you could also use a lima bean or any other beautiful large white bean you can get your hands on. We started with a pound of dried beans and we cooked them until soft. Drain them, and now we can set them aside. Now we're gonna prep some vegetables. We're gonna do half a bulb of fennel, half a red onion, and a handful of fresh parsley, separating the stems and the leaves. Right now we're just gonna use the stems. We're also gonna need some sage. This was fresh sage that is now dry, but you can use fresh or dry. A lemon. We're gonna use the zest and the juice separately, and some garlic. I'm gonna cut up about 4 of these cloves, which are relatively small cloves. I think we're gonna say about 30 leaves of fresh sage, and I'm gonna say chopped roughly, but since mine's pretty dry already, we're just gonna crumble it a bit. See, sometimes it pays to be lazy. I don't think I gave my usual oil disclaimer, but this recipe needs one. Oil upsets you? This is not your recipe. This is a very oil-forward recipe. Why? Because we want to make beautiful, luscious, silky, rich, fatty beans. And that means lots of oil. We're using olive oil today. We're gonna start off by pouring about a 1/4 cup of oil into our skillet. To that, we're going to add our fresh sage, garlic, and parsley stems. And we're gonna cook until the sage becomes crispy and the spices become a little bit fragrant. While we're at that, I'm preheating the oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. That is roughly 190 degrees Celsius. And yes, that was off the top of my head. There is a very small range between 350 and 450 where I just so happen to know the conversions to Celsius. Now we can add the fennel and red onion. Give it a little stir, and we basically just want to cook this down so it loses moisture and volume. I'm going to add a little sprinkle of salt here. It's coming along, so let's add about a teaspoon of dried rosemary, a teaspoon of dried thyme. I will say I did not do this on purpose, and I just realized that at this point we do have parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme in this. So other old people will know what I'm referencing here. And then we're gonna add some of this chicken style broth. Any vegetable bouillon that you have, chicken flavored or otherwise, will work here. About 2 teaspoons of this concentrate. All right, we've got a mixing bowl to make this situation a little bit easier. Transfer all of your cooked fennel along with all the oil to your mixing bowl. Now, if you've made this in something that can go in the oven, you actually don't need to be too worried about getting all the oil because you'll just be putting things right back in here, but we want to make sure that we don't miss out on that flavor. Next, we're going to add our beans, the juice of this lemon, another 1/2 cup or so of olive oil, and then give it a good mixy mix. Once you've mixed it, you can go ahead and give it a taste and then adjust salt and pepper to your liking. We've got it all mixed, salted and peppered, and now we're going to put it in an oven-safe dish. This can be the same dish that you plan on serving in. In my case, it's the same dish I did my cooking in. Smooth it into an even layer. Into the oven this goes. The oven is set at 375, and we're gonna wait until the top of this looks crispy and crunchy, and you can see sort of bubbly oil. We're gonna top with our lemon zest and a sprinkling of finely chopped parsley. That is the centerpiece, my friend. Let us start on our next main. This is going to be a lentil and mushroom pithivier, which is a French word that I'm sure I'm saying incorrectly. But essentially, it is a domed, magnificent puff pastry tart. We've got lentils, we've got mushrooms, and we've got some other bits and pieces. So let's go ahead and prep those now, and then we can move on. 8 ounces of mushrooms. You can use whatever mushrooms you want, but button mushrooms are generally the cheapest. 1 large onion. A 5.3 ounce package of roasted chestnuts. Now typically I use frozen and then roast them myself, but today we're trying pre-roasted and we'll see how that goes. 2 large carrots. About 3 or 4 sprigs of sage, fresh sage, and 4 cloves of garlic. We've also got a vast quantity of lentils. These are black caviar lentils, but again, you can use other whole lentils. I would not recommend using split lentils for this, though. I'm not quite sure how much we're gonna need yet. I cooked up a whole pound, and we're gonna determine in the process of cooking now how much of that we're actually gonna need. When you're making your pithivier, you need a bowl to act sort of as a mold. So this is gonna be mine. The only thing that would make me a little bit happier is if it wasn't flat on top, but you do what you can. So we're gonna use this both to cut out the correct size of puff pastry and to actually fill with our filling. So in preparation of that, we're gonna line this with saran wrap, AKA cling film, AKA plastic wrap, whatever you wanna call it. Time for some pithivier filling. The main thing to accomplish here is that mushrooms have a lot of water in them. So we've got to sweat out some of that water or we'll be dealing with soggy pastry. Add a splash of oil to a skillet, or don't. You actually don't have to with this one. You could just use like a little bit of water and saute with water if that's what you prefer. And to this we're going to add our sage, about a teaspoon or 2 of rosemary, and another teaspoon or so of dried thyme. We're also going to add about a teaspoon of tarragon. Give it a little toast, and then we're gonna add our garlic and our onion. Let's add our carrots and mushrooms now. Our mushrooms are juicing. Let's add another 2 teaspoons of this vegetable chicken broth concentrate. Again, any bouillon you have is great. I love the vegetarian better than bouillon. That's what I would typically add, but you know, we use what we got. Actually, we might as well add our chestnuts at this time too. I'm not gonna do it because I want to eat this apple, but a finely chopped apple in this would be amazing. But I need to eat this one, so keep away. We've lost a good amount of moisture, and this seems pretty cooked. So now we're gonna add our lentils, and I think we're gonna want 1.5 to 2 cups of cooked lentils. Stir it in and then add salt and pepper to taste. We're gonna take our prepared bowl with the plastic wrap and fill it with our filling. You want it to be pretty densely packed, although you don't need to like squish it, but you know, like gently pressing it down is a good idea. We're gonna pop it in the freezer. It doesn't need to freeze, but we want it to cool down, and that's just gonna be the quickest way to get that done. Puff pastry, we're gonna need both sheets, but let's work on them one at a time. The first sheet just needs to be a little bit bigger than that mold you used. If you're smart, you'd roll them out before you fill the mold, because then you could use it as a template, but I kind of forgot about that. So I've got this bowl here, which is a similar diameter to the other one, but a little bit bigger, which is actually perfect. And we're just gonna cut around it, and this will be the base. This one you want to be able to cover the filling of your pithivier, and you want a little steam hole in the top. So rather than trying to estimate how big it's gonna be, I'm just gonna make my steam hole and then drape it over top and cut it from there. We've got our filling, and we're going to somehow get it on top of here without making a mess. Okay. That was much more complicated than it needed to be, and still not perfectly centered, but pretty good. Drape this on top. Gently work out those wrinkles. Gently work out the wrinkles, and then just go to the base and sort of huck. I'm gonna cut out about 1 inch from the edge, and then we're just gonna fold and crimp. Wait, you want a sharp knife, or in my case a razor blade, and we're gonna make the traditional design, which is sort of a curve downwards. You don't want to cut all the way through, you just want to score. Like so. And then just go all the way around the tart. And usually this is baked like with a piping tip sort of in the center as a steam vent. So we'll give that a shot. This is traditionally next coated with an egg wash. Now, obviously I'm not doing that. You could do aquafaba, you could do a little plant-based milk, you could do a little vegan butter, but I'm gonna try something interesting because we're experimenting a bit, and I'm gonna use the water from a tofu canister. I saw a video where someone used it like aquafaba, so, you know, we'll see. Just brush a layer of that on, and then we'll pop it into our oven at 375. Time to get our last Thanksgiving recipe started, and this should be the easiest of them all. It's going to be a recipe using tofu, but importantly, this is tofu that I have frozen all the way and now defrosted, which gives it a better texture. If you've seen the video where I made a vegan orange chicken, we're basically riffing off of that, but making it Thanksgiving-y. Alrighty, here we've got about 1 to 2 scallions, a lime. You could also use an orange, but basically what we want is just another flavor that's gonna add a little dimension to the sauce. 2 or 3 sprigs of fresh sage, 4 cloves of garlic. This is a tablespoon of grated ginger. You're gonna want some parsley or some cilantro. I'm using parsley because that's what I have. And an entire bag of cranberries. I'm talking your standard 12-ounce bag. We're also gonna go with 2 containers of firm or extra firm tofu that's been frozen and defrosted. You can take that and just squeeze out as much moisture as possible. I'm gonna go do that over the sink. And if you want more information about working with frozen tofu, I really recommend you go check out the video that I made where we made an orange chicken out of frozen tofu, because that has a lot more information about it than I'm gonna be giving here. I would estimate that 1 block of tofu feeds about 2 people. I guess it really depends on how many other things you are or aren't eating and how big of eaters you are, but that's my guess. So we're making this for 4 people. You're gonna break the tofu into bite-sized pieces. I like them like this. And breaking is really important as opposed to cutting because it gives you nice craggly edges that will make it nice and crispy, which is what we're going for. To our tofu, we're gonna add about a teaspoon of salt, some pepper. I'm gonna do a white pepper, and about half a teaspoon of Chinese 5 spice. We're also gonna need about half a cup of cornstarch. Toss that all together so everything is coated. Excellent. Now it's time to cook. Cover the bottom of your pan with a generous layer of oil. You're gonna wanna work in batches so everything gets crispy. Once your tofu is sufficiently crispy, you can remove and place them aside. I'm just using a regular plate. Add a little more oil as needed, although you don't need a ton to shallow fry tofu like this. I think this should be the last batch of tofu. Now it's time to make the sauce. I find you can use whatever residual oil is in the pot and add to it your ginger, garlic, sage, about half your parsley, a little bit more, and the same with your scallions. Saute that around and then add to it about a 1/4 cup of water. We're gonna add our cranberries now. And we're just gonna cook those around while the cranberries soften and eventually burst. Whilst we are at it, we might as well add about a teaspoon of Chinese 5 spice and a teaspoon of rosemary. We can make this process a little bit faster by getting out our potato masher and helping them out some. I am not quite sure how much sugar we're gonna be adding yet, but I think it's safe to start with a 1/4 cup. If you want a very smooth sauce, you could blend and strain this, but I'm gonna go for something a little more chunky, a little more rustic. While we're waiting, we have a bowl that's filled with this like clumpy tofu-filled cornstarchy mess, right? So we're going to add to this about 2 tablespoons of soy sauce and a 1/4 cup of water. Now we're gonna whisk this together really well to get the most we can out of that cornstarch. Yum! All right, add that to the cranberry mixture. And we're just gonna heat it up and let it thicken. Turn off the heat. Let's add our lime zest, or lime juice. And then we're gonna add our tofu and get it all coated in the sauce. Just in time. The days are so short now, there's really not enough time to properly film a video, but we sort of got it done, so let's eat. We've got our beautiful beans in plenty of oil. These are silky and soft on the under layer. The top layer has a bit of crispiness to it. I really enjoy the variation in texture. The fennel is crispy and sort of caramelized, as are the onions. And there is a plethora of this olive oil, which makes me want to serve it with a baguette or a crusty bread. You can sort of just dip in and sop up all that seasoned oil. The lemon zest and parsley adds a lovely bit of brightness to it that I also think is just phenomenal. While I think it's delicious like this, I also think you could get away with reducing this by about a 1/4 cup of oil if you wanted to. You would have less dipping oil though, which in my opinion would be a pity. The one thing I would add to this, and I think I will add to this, is a topping of smoked flaky salt. Yep, that's good. In my opinion, it's been a successful tart/pastry when you can cut a slice out and it keeps its shape. And we've done that here, so this is already a success. We don't even need to taste it. But of course we will. I ended up cooking this for 45 minutes and it still wasn't really as golden as I wanted. So I turned off the oven and turned on the broiler and that got us there. So if you are having that same issue, a little broiler will help. I think this one has the most like traditional Thanksgiving taste. Of course, the beautiful puff pastry, flaky, delicious. We love puff pastry. But then the lentils are very dark and earthy, and the umaminess of the mushrooms mix really well with that. The carrots add a nice little bit of texture, although I think you could sub them with parsnips or turnips or celery, other vegetables if you prefer. And then in most bites, you'll get that sweetness from a chestnut. And the flavor of chestnut just screams holidays to me. It's buttery, it's hearty, it's sort of heavy in the way that most traditional Thanksgiving foods are. I think this is sort of a classic. Now moving on to our not so classics. I don't know why I didn't imagine a cranberry tofu would be this red, but it is so red. I mean, it's really good. It tastes kind of like a sweet and sour sauce, but also very much like a cranberry sauce. The warming notes of the 5 spice actually taste very seasonally appropriate, and the aroma of the rosemary is very nice. I don't really taste it in the same way I taste some of the other flavors, but the smell is lovely as it comes up. One thing I would say when making this is don't do an amazing job tossing it, because some of the best bites are the ones where a little corner didn't get covered in the sauce and they're like a little bit crispier than the rest of it. The tartness of the cranberries. If you are a cranberry lover and a tofu lover, or even just a tofu liker, you will love this dish. A lot of the crispiness of the tofu does go away when you cover it with the sauce, which makes sense. We would expect that, but it still has a little bit of crispiness to it and it feels so juicy. This is the one that Dougie wants to try the most. You want both? Gotta take it off the fork, good boy. Wow, it's been a long day. I kind of expected to come away with this with a clear favorite, and I honestly expected it to be the tofu, and it might be the tofu, but I'm not sure. There's not really a clear favorite for me here. They're all so different, which is fascinating because I used a lot of the same ingredients throughout each dish. This one looks like very beautiful and rustic, and it's lemony. It pairs great with bread. Rich. Pithivier is earthy, dense, very Thanksgiving-y, bits of sweet, flaky crust. And then the tofu is just bright and sour and crispy. I don't know. I like them all, actually. Let me know in the comments which of these sounds the most appealing to you, or which of these you'd be most likely to serve for Thanksgiving. I'd also love to know what you do for Thanksgiving or for Christmas. Do you have fun traditions, favorite dishes? Let me know in the comments below. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more, make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on so you can see the next time that we post. Thanks, and enjoy your winter holidays. Next, we have our Pithivier. Pithivier? Pithivier.